I would like to thank the Council for inviting us here tonight and to acknowledge that we're on Aboriginal land and pay my respects to Elders past and present. Save Marrickville South is a grassroots community group. We were set up to oppose the scale of development in the South Marrickville area. We're local residents and we will be adversely impacted by not only this gross overdevelopment but others in the Marrickville precinct. I'm going to bring you back to the Carrington Road development and we're going to make four main points. The first one is that we would like to see the general industrial zoning retained for this development. The proposal seeks to rezone the site, as you've heard, as B2 local centre and R4 high density residential. It retains no industrial zoning. This area currently houses 148 industries employing between 900 and 1,400 people. Now, while not all of the businesses in this precinct, many of these sort of creative businesses, don't require industrial zoning, and Mirvac has indicated that some of these will be able to stay under their new zoning, they need the industrial zoning because it's not single businesses that make the area in Carrington Road, it's the clusters of businesses. Yeah. And many of these businesses need industrial zoning, either IN1 or IN2. They use tools, they use equipment, they have paint, they have chemicals, and they need that industrial zoning to remain. So don't believe Mirvac that they can stay. Many of the businesses there are also relying on the low rents that they're charged at the moment. And though Mirvac has said that they will retain some of these low rent spaces, we know what they said about the hospital site. And we've seen the letter that they sent to residents going back on some of the public works that they said they would do on that site. So we cannot believe anything they say. We'd like to see that there's no more than 5 stories on average in this development. We are not Hong Kong, as seen here, and we don't want to become a monstrous version of Wallow Creek. It's not in keeping with the character of our heritage suburb. The current proposal is for a maximum of 105 metres, which, as we've heard, is up to 35 stories. This will see significant impacts on the surrounding areas. It will see overshadowing, as we've heard, not only in South Marrickville and Mackey Park, but also the residents in Tempe, and many of them are unaware that this is even happening. And I'll show, if you haven't seen our Lego development, down the back. We made it originally at 25 stories, but when we saw the new Mirvac plans, we had to increase our towers to 35 stories. It was hard to find enough Lego. We're also worried about the aircraft heights in this area. We're not sure that they can even do 35 stories, and they haven't addressed that in their proposal. This area has 216 units proposed. It is totally unsustainable in this area. This area, as you've heard, is a floodplain. And for those of you that live here, you know that it floods on a regular basis. These are just some of the images that we've taken of the flooding or that have been in the local paper of the flooding in the area. And I was amused to see the creek on the Mirvac plan that was shown earlier today, because none of these creeks are actual creeks. They're all canals that were built because of the flooding in this area. And this area is zoned industrial because of the flooding. There were houses in this area originally, but because of the flooding, it was rezoned. This will result in traffic chaos. As we know, they're just single lane roads all around this area. This includes the Myrtle Street underpass, the Carrington Road itself, Richardson Crescent, and the roads that feed onto Carrington Road, such as narrow Warren Road and Schwebel Street. We can hardly get cars along these streets as it is without all of these extra people. And not only will these streets become parking lots, particularly if there's a supermarket down there, but how are our kids going to get across and go to school, get to the station and so on? It's going to be a nightmare. And what's going to happen when the Myrtle Street underpass and Richardson Crescent flood, as they regularly do? There'll be no way in or out for these cars. And as we've heard before, there's a lack of infrastructure. There are no new schools, excuse me. One of my pictures hasn't come up. Fern Court's already at capacity. We've heard that Mackey Park is at capacity. And there was a wonderful picture, which I had hoped would appear here, that shows Mackey Park dirt brown after the football season. It is already overused. There is insufficient room for our kids to play. If we put a development on this site, if there is a development on this site, I should say, then it needs playing fields. It needs open space, not little bike paths. And we'd like to see those heritage features retained. And again, I don't trust Mirvac. They'll say that they're going to retain it, but we'll wait and see what happens later. This building was opened in 1926 as the GMH factory. It is the last remaining intact Holden Factory in Australia. And if we do anything, we should be making it a museum. It'd be a perfect site. So our points are to retain the general industrial zoning, to have no more than 5 stories on the Carrington precinct, that the number of dwellings is totally unsustainable. We want to retain the heritage features. So they're our take-home messages, and I think you've been getting those messages from everyone tonight. So I'll finish there.